The lowest point in my addiction, I would have to say, when I decided it was a great idea to commit crimes.
Welcome to another edition of Recovery Happens. I'm Patrick Patterson with BW Rock. Today we have Jeanne, who's here to offer hope and encourage recovery.
Life was like growing up. I grew up on the east side of Detroit, and it was really tough. We were a lower socioeconomic class. Both my parents were working parents. I spent a lot of time alone, being the only child. Had to learn to grow up super quick, and it always wasn't such a pleasant experience. Having to walk to school alone and learning to do things. My parents did the best they could with what they had, and I never realized how poor we were until I became an adult and realized, oh my gosh, like life was kind of hard. When I first realized that I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, I was probably about 14. I had started smoking weed at like 12 years old, and I didn't think it was such a big deal. But it was like I was one of those kids that, had to do more of anything, whether it was eat candy or like smoke weed or drink. So by the time I got to high school, I was pretty much a full time user of something, whether it be drugs, alcohol, shopping, anything that came to mind. I just wanted more. Well, I dropped out of high school at a pretty young age due to my drug and alcohol use. I didn't really realize it was a problem, but I thought I had a problem because when I was in high school, I told my guidance counselor that I'd been smoking crack, and I went to Grosse Pointe schools at that point, and like it was like not in our neighborhood, type of deal. So as I got older, I started hanging out with an older crowd, and I was using a lot of, cocaine. And by the time I was 19, I was a full blown drug addict. Um, Things didn't get better for a very long time, unfortunately. Throughout the years, my disease progressed into something super ugly and super destructive. Um, it cost me five felonies. I've been to prison twice. But if it wasn't for those experiences, I don't think I'd be who I am today. I got sober in 2014. I had a little nudge from the judge. I was looking at 8 more years of incarceration if I didn't complete a drug court program. And it was at that point that like I had to fully surrender. I just I didn't want to do it anymore. Back when I got out of prison the first time in 2010, they just didn't have the resources that they do now. Like I didn't know, I went to therapy, but like I didn't know about recovery housing. Like I'd gone to 12-step meetings, but I didn't think it would work for me because I never integrated into that community. So when I was sentenced to drug court in 2014, I just remember the voice of the therapist I had in 2010 saying, why don't you try those meetings, the meetings that I was so resistant about. But it wasn't until I got involved into a community of people that I was able to see the benefits that recovery had to offer. The last treatment center I went to, I had a fantastic social worker who told me that my story was going to change people's lives. And I didn't quite know what she meant by that. So a couple months into my recovery, I called her up and I was like, hey, I think I want to go to college. And she said, you're not waiting, enroll now. So a big part of my recovery just wasn't like 12-step meetings. It was also integrating an education into it, becoming involved with other people, doing what we call service work in 12-step meetings. And throughout the years, I've been so blessed to like not only recover, but I've also been blessed to help other people recover in this process. I graduated with my master's degree December of 2024, and I've been working in the field of substance use disorders since 2016. Um, I always really think about like this TED Talk that I saw years ago, and I actually got to see it live at a behavioral health conference in Nashville in 2018. And it was Johann Hari, and he was talking about the Rat Park experience. And the last line of that, that TED Talk always hits me hard. It's like, he says, the answer to addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection, right? And it's so great to be a part of another community, because I'm originally, from Detroit, and then moved to Macomb in recovery, and now I've moved out to the Blue Water area, and I'm very blessed to be a part of this community, because I see the hope. I get to see the hope in people's faces and eyes when, like they got their 30, 60, 90 days. And some of these people I've seen like completely all the way through their journey to, where they're at today from where I used to work at. So I'm super, super excited. I'm using the word super an awful lot, but it's a great blessing to be a part of that. The lowest point in my addiction, I would have to say, when I decided it was a great idea to commit crimes. That was the progression. At one point I could maintain a job, but then like when one substance outweighed the other substance, I couldn't maintain employment, I couldn't take care of my family. I couldn't be a mother, I couldn't be a daughter, I couldn't be a friend. But I think the lowest point is when I went to prison in 2005 and I took myself out of my family's life. But if it wasn't for that experience, and that's where I actually got the idea about going to college. I took a creative writing class through the University of West Virginia, because I was incarcerated in West Virginia through the federal government. And I told my mentor there, and he was a guard, and he was a great guy. And I told him, I'm like, sir, I think I'm going to go to college. And he said, what are you going to go to college for? I'm like, well, I'm going to be a drug and alcohol counselor. And he told me that if I went to college and graduated, he would be at my graduation. So in 2023, I received my bachelor's degree, and this gentleman flew from LA to Michigan to see me graduate after he retired from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. My biggest triumph in recovery was getting a GED at the age of 32 in St. Clair County Jail, and then walking across the stage, the only person in my entire family to have a master's degree in 24, it was 24, yeah. That was the biggest accomplishment, because it's nothing, it's like, I could take away my own clean time, right? But nobody can take that degree from me, and I earned that because I stayed clean and sober.
Thank you for watching this edition of Recovery Happens. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please give us a call at 888-68-BW-ROCK.